Can we hear me? Good evening, Oluwafemi. Good evening, Sadiq. Good evening, Baba Tope. Evening. Good evening, Abdulaziz. Good evening, Toba. Good evening, Tomewa, Noye, Mazida, and Ibrahim. Hope we are all doing well.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, so it's day 7, so we're welcome to the Power Platform series, where we're talking about everything Power Platform really. So we've had some talks around the Power Apps. Now we are on the Power BI. We are 6 minutes behind schedule already, and so we go on. We hope that every other person that will join this call, they will join in as we progress. But before I proceed, I want to quickly make some confirmations. One is I sent 2 files today. I sent one in the afternoon or in the evening, and I sent another file maybe some 20 minutes ago. Please use the raise hand icon if you got both files. Okay, you can see Oluwafemi Obatokwe. Let's raise our hands if we got both files. You have to check the spam or the junk folders as well. So I can see just 2 hands. Abdulaziz, are you there? Did you get any of the files? Okay, I can see 3 now. Tomiwa, are you there? Okay, not sure Tomiwa is here. Abdulaziz.
Yeah, I got the file. Yeah, both did so.
Okay, so I requested that we raise our hands, so I know the number of people who got the files.
Okay. Actually,
All
I
right.
can't find where to raise up my hand.
Okay, that's fine. So okay, I think most of us have the files, so we'll go just straight in. So what I would want us to do is, as we progress, please download the attachment, the 2 files, download them. So I'm going to tell us which one we're starting with, and what are we going to do with those files as we progress. All right, thank you very much, everyone. So let's just go straight in. Today you're welcome again, and you're still on the Power BI. Remember our facilitators, and today we want to look at the framework to build whatever report you want to build. In the last class, we established that one of the basic things, or one of the basic ways of deploying Power BI, is in the area of business analytics. You want to make some sense out of whatever data your business generates, and so that would assist you make some more informed decision, some data-driven decision as to what is to be done, or what to drop, what to intensify effort on, and just a whole lot of stuff around the business. So it gives you a better understanding of how your business is being run, and it's pictures how your business would perform if some metrics are put in place, or some things are put in place. So, but when you now decide that you want to now build your reports in Power BI, we have a framework for whatever report you want to build. And the framework is divided into 3 things. So you have 3 things that you would do typically before you would be set to be ready for a report, or before we would say that, okay, your report is well cooked. The first of them is data preparation. We remember that in the last class we mentioned the building blocks of Power BI. So what is the building block of Power BI, or what are the building blocks? Let's quickly have a recap around that. Building blocks of Power BI. So we're taking the lead. We have a number of those.
Data sets.
Data set. Thank you, Tope. Oluwafemi, you want to add to that?
Virtuals.
Visuals, yes, thank you. Then, yeah, we have two now. Report, 3. Let me call on
Dashboard.
Yeah, dashboard. Ablaziz, give us the 5th one. Or Mazida or Ibrahim.
Tile.
Some of us have spoken. Tile. Excellent.
Tiles.
So now, great. So we understand that whatever thing we want to do in Power BI must begin with data. Before you can make sense out of data, obviously you already have the data. You are not just sourcing for data. You have the data with you, and then you now want to begin to drill into that data to make some sense out of that data. The data you want to make some sense out of must be prepared. And when we say that your data must be prepared, that means there is a particular structure that your data must assume before we would say that your data is ready for analysis. So for whatever analysis you want to do within Power BI, if your data does not follow a particular structure that we're going to see shortly, then the most likely thing that you would experience is that there will be so much difficulties in your reporting. While you're building your report, you will experience so much difficulties. Secondly, is that your report most likely would not be accurate. You would have errors. You would have just some things that you don't expect. You'll see some of those things in your report. And that is why one of the most essential things when it comes to reporting with Power BI that every analyst, business intelligence analyst, business analyst, so far you're using Power BI, you need to know is how to prepare your data. And that is the first framework. The second of the framework is what we call data modeling. Data modeling is an essential concept that we need to understand. Why do we need to model our data? Why do we need to do some things that are within the confines of modeling? And when we talk of modeling, we're talking about relationships, we're talking about writing functions, DAX. All those are embedded in your model. And the last part of it, which is actually the output, that is what people see. That is the data visualization. So when people open Power BI report or even Excel report, what people see is they see a lot of bar charts, see pie charts, donut charts, see some line graph. All of these, they are from the visualization that you can have. But these are just the output. A lot of background work must have been done from data preparation, from data modeling, before you would have the result of that visualization that you would have. Today, we'll start our conversation around data preparation. How do we prepare our data? We'll start our conversation around that. And then in subsequent sessions, we'll be looking at data modeling. Why should you model your data? How do you model your data? What are the benefits of modeling your data? And then some of the sessions, maybe 1 or 2, we look at DAX, which is the Power BI functional language. We look at DAX, that language, and how you can utilize that language to make your report a lot better and a lot more insightful. And also we look at data visualization. What are the things that you can do to enhance whatever visualization you are building within Power BI. So today, like I mentioned, we're going to be looking at data preparation. That is what we'll start with today. And to start on data preparation, we'll discuss some set of rules that we need to be aware of, which translates to the structure our data must assume before we would say that our data is ready and fine for analysis. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now and just in some seconds, I will bring up my Excel file. So I want every one of us, let's open the attachment titled or named data cleaning intro. Let's open data cleaning intro. That's what I want us to open now. Data cleaning intro. As soon as you have it opened, please use the raise hand icon. I have one hand up. Okay, two hands, three, four. Just a minute. I want everyone to open that file. Please, let's leave our hands up. Let's leave our hands up so I'm able to track who is yet to open the file. Yeah, I have 6 now. I say expect one more person, I guess. Or 2. Yeah, I think 2 or 3. Yeah. So please, just a minute, then we proceed. Okay. So now, on this file, we have a number of worksheets on this particular file. But before we dive into what we are looking at on the individual worksheet, I want to set a pace. And the pace I want to set is towards we understanding what structure should our data follow before we would say that our data is ready for analysis. I will add a new worksheet here. So let me add a new worksheet. How do we add worksheets? So I can come here, just click the plus. And then on this worksheet, I'll give us a number of rows. So rules, or we say data management rules or guides. Let's bear in mind, these rules that we want to begin to talk about, they are the rules that would make us know whether our data is ready for analysis or not. So for whatever data preparation we are doing, we need to always refer to these rules to say that all of these rules, they are satisfied. If there is one of these rules that is not fulfilled in any way, then that means that our data is not ready for analysis. By implication, we need to ensure that none of these rules is violated before we proceed to begin our analysis. I'm going to list out the rules, then I will begin to explain each of these rules, and then we see practically what it looks like when we say that a rule is violated or not, and then we begin to as a sort of a use case, we look at the worksheets that we have here and how we can do some sort of application to what we're talking about. So let me quickly just run through the rules. So we say that you shouldn't have empty rows. You should not have empty columns in your data. Please, we can take it down as I'm writing. Let's take it down in our notes. You should have a single row of headings. just a single row of headings. Your dates must be in a single column, and you shouldn't have obstructions around your data. Please, let's take it down. And then you should not have totals or subtotals. And you should not have what again? No empty rows, column headings. Then all your data categories must have unique columns. Yeah, so they should be 7, I suppose. So they should be 7. So let's take this down now, everybody. Yeah, so we have 7. Then we quickly run through them and we begin to look at them practically. All right, so now the first rule when it comes to data preparation is that you should not have empty rows within your data. What does it mean to have empty rows? Let me put up a second Excel file quickly. Let me say this file, just some seconds. So let's look at this now. We are saying that we want to look at the first rule, and the first rule is that you shouldn't have empty rows within your data. Assuming that this is the data we want to analyze, we have this data set of about 32,000, 33,000 rows. That is the data set we want to analyze. So when we talk about rows, which is the row? Let me highlight something. This, highlight this in yellow, and then let me highlight this in I think this green. So which is the row and which is the column?
Yellow is the row.
Sorry?
The yellow.
The yellow.
Yellow is the row.
The yellow is the row, correct. So now when we say that your data must not have empty rows, so what we are saying is that for a data set like this, if I come to say row 17 and I have something like this, then this is an empty row. An empty row in the sense that if I'm coming from above, then I will get to a particular row that has no data within it. This is an empty row. Let's look at a second scenario. If I have something like this, maybe I come down to say row 86, and on this row I have maybe for North Central I have the data for this, but I don't have this data. Is this an empty row or not? Empty row
It's
or
not.
not?
It's not an empty row.
It's not an empty row, Sandra. Okay. Who else? Is this an empty row or not an empty row?
No, it's not.
Sorry, not sure I got that.
It's not an empty row.
It's not an empty row. Why is it not an empty row?
It's just an empty box from a row, not an empty
From
row.
a row. Okay.
Just an empty
Ablaziz.
space from a
Okay.
row.
All right. Thank you, Ibrahim. Ablaziz, what do you think? Is this an empty row or not?
Actually, I can say we can still say it's an empty row because the role is not complete, unlike the
Because
other data.
okay. Thank you for that. So now, when we say that we have empty rows within our data set, it has to be that the entire row like this, entire rows like this is empty. No data at all from left to right of that particular table. It has to be that we don't have any data at all. That is what we mean by empty rows. What we have in this situation, this guy here, what we have here is more like we have empty cells. We have empty cells, but not empty rows. So it will become an empty row if everything that we have here is actually completely empty like this. This is when this will become an empty row, such that there is no record at all from left to right of that particular table. So let's note that. So if a data is missing, maybe for this particular record here, for this record, maybe the person that entered the data for some reasons did not know what the line of business is for this transaction, and maybe is not sure whether this transaction happened on a work day or on a weekday or public holiday, is not sure. It's possible that they leave these two cells blank, and that does not translate to we having empty rows within our data. So that is the first thing we need to note. So no empty rows within our data. Okay. So now, the second rule that we want to look at, rule number 2 that we want to look at is that, sorry, I did something, yeah, is that we should not have any empty columns. We should not have empty columns within our data. What does it mean to have empty columns? Just like we saw for empty rows, is for us to have a completely empty column like this. Just like I have on column D now, nothing is here from top to bottom. No data at all. So this is the last row on our data set, and we can see that top to bottom of it, we do not have any data at all. So this is an empty column. So which implies that if for some reasons we have data here that's just sort of deleted, and we don't have some data here, so these are still just empty cells. They are not empty columns. They do not result to an empty column. Why? Because some cells within that column have data in them. Are we following? We following? Is this clear?
Yes.
Yes, it's
Yes.
Okay, great. All right.
Yes.
Okay. Rule number 3. Mienka, okay, you have a question? I saw your hand up briefly. Okay. Rule number 3. You should have single row of headings. One row of heading. Your data set should have single row of headings. What does this mean? When we come here now, what is our heading on this data set? Let me call someone who has not spoken today. Sarah, are you there? Hello, is Sarah there? Not sure, not sure. Okay, Tomiwa, are you there? Hello, Tomiwa.
Hello.
Okay, yeah. So now,
Hello.
on this particular data set, what is our heading? Or what are our headings?
This is my earpiece.
Yeah, I can hear you, although
We
faintly,
can hear
but
you.
we can cope with that, yeah.
Remo will not put me in trouble.
So Tomiwa, what are the headings or what is our heading on this table?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Oh, okay. Okay, sorry. Yeah, so you're asking for the headings, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but I think you've changed your screen. I think it's data management rule or so.
No. Can you see what I have on my screen now? Historical sales data, this table.
Yeah, I'm saying regional market store.
Yeah, so it's on this table. I want you to identify what the headings are or what the heading is.
Okay, the headings. Well, I'm thinking region, market, store, trade dates.
Great. So that means you're saying that the headings are what we have on row number 1.
Yes.
Yeah, correct. So now, in a situation whereby we come here and say we add a cell, we want to shift this down and say we have an extra row here. And then on this extra row, we're saying that we just have something like maybe sales data, and maybe we just do this. Okay, so in this situation now, we have more than a single row of heading. Why? Even though we might say that this one, the sales data here, is not part of our heading. Sometimes we may even do something like, say, we have this. Okay, maybe even there are some spaces here before the data actually starts. It still implies that we have more than a row of heading, because if we load this data set into Power BI, what Power BI will recognize as part of your heading or as part of your data is what you have on row number 1, because you have something on row number 1. So that means that from row number 1 down to row number 5 would be part of your data, then continue that way. So which means that you may need to do some cleanings around it. But what we are trying to drive at here is that what is essential and what we should have normally is a single row of heading like this. And when we say headings, that is a sort of a title which gives specific description about what you have in that column. So if you come to region now, we expect that everything that we would have here, they are just regions of the country, not central, not east, not west, and all. If we come to market, this should give us a list of all our markets. If I come to the line of business, this should give us a list of all our line of business. So every column the header would describe this kind of data that we have in that column. So we should have just a single row of heading. So that is what we should have. So let's go to row number 4. Row number 4 is saying that your dates must be in a single column. Your dates must be in a single column. What do you mean by this? If I come to our data set, we have a trade date here. If, for instance, instead of having trade dates like this, for some reasons we have this particular date, we have it here under our store, and then maybe for some other reasons we have this particular date, maybe we have it under the unit sold. Okay, this implies that our dates are scattered within our table, and that would have some negative tolls on our analysis. Our dates must be all in the same column. Someone would want to ask, what if in a situation whereby probably we have different ways of measuring dates in our company? So maybe a sort of maybe we run a manufacturing business, and in our business we keep tag of our production date, our what's it called, um, the dates that our products are sold, and some other types of dates. So in essence is that your production date, everything must be in the same column. And when you talk about the other types of dates that you have, that you keep tabs on within your organization, within your company, you should have all of those highlighted or outlined within the same column. So your dates must assume the same column. That is what this rule is saying. If on any rule you have questions, please call my attention to it, so that we all are on the same page. Rule number 5. You shouldn't have obstructions. Abdulaziz, please shoot quickly.
Yeah, sorry, about the other one that you said, the date must be in a single column. How about if we have our dates instead of maybe the month comes first, why the day comes in the middle, why the year is at the last part, or maybe it's somehow twisted. So and maybe in some we have this same format in some of our data. Does it also has issue, like does it correlate with what you just said?
Is this what you're saying, that maybe we have something like this for our dates?
No, they are still together, like not in different column. If they are in, like for instance, where we have the first one, 1st of April 2014. So maybe we now have 14 first 2014. Maybe it's somehow twisted. Maybe it is not in the same format.
The same format.
But not in the same format. Some are in the same format, while some are not in the same format.
Okay. So now that is one of the things that you must ensure you validate. Your dates must be in the same column and they must be in the same format. And typically your date should assume the format that your system is currently running. So if your system is running day, month, year, then your data set that you want to analyze should run day, month, year. If your system is running month, day, year, then you should try that your date also is in that particular format. So your format should be uniform. So you shouldn't have day, month, year on this row, and then you come here and you are doing month, day here. And that is one of those things that as analysts, if you are providing templates for people to gather data, you must try as much as possible to validate those templates. Because if you don't do that, you would eventually spend a big portion of your time trying to clean up the mess that you have in your data. The mess as little as dates not all being in the same in a uniform format would have some very much adverse effect on what you would want to do if you don't figure them out as quickly as possible. So 2 things: you should have your dates in the same column, in a single column, and you should have your date uniformly formatted. And an addition is that your date should follow the formats that you have in your system. That is the recommended way, because there are certain times that you would want to do some cleaning in Power Query and you may not be able to quickly figure out that it's just the discrepancy between your system date and your data date that is causing that issue. Thank you for that. So now we're saying that the 5th rule is that you shouldn't have obstructions around the data. There should be no obstruction around the data. And when we say obstruction around the data, is for instance, if I'm looking at this data now, North Central, this particular row, and say I come here and I say verify. Then I come down here and maybe this one, I just want to leave another comment here and I say okay. And like that, and I keep on going like that. This particular additions that I have here, they have nothing to do really with our data. Nothing to do really with our data. They would not have any value to your analysis, basically. But if you want to have something like this, you could have an extra column, say maybe status, or comment, as the case may be. You have something like, and you leave your comments here. So maybe you want your comments to be part of one of those things that people would see when they're consuming your report. But then if they would not be part of what you want to see on your report, anything that you add around your data, they will stand as obstructions to your data. That is rule number 5. Rule number 6. Rule number 6 is that you shouldn't have totals or subtotals within your data. What does this mean? For instance, if I come here just below my data set, if I come here and I add the summation of this, of this particular revenue. This is the summation of our revenue, 77 billion. That's the summation. If I add this to my report, if I add this to my reports like this, and say maybe I do the same thing for units sold, then I'm starting to have some totals around my data, which would have some, which would impact our report in a way. This total here, 77 billion, is actually one of those things that should be on your report. Maybe one of those things you want to see on your report is what's our total revenue, what's our total units sold, what's our units sold by a particular line of business. That could be some of the things that you want to see on your report. So typically, you're not supposed to have those on your data. The implication if you have those on your data is that if on your reports now, maybe we have this on our data and say we come here and we say this is total. Okay, we add this row as our total row on our data, and we have this aggregation already done for revenue and already done for our units sold. So the implication of this on our report is that eventually when we want to now take the sum of our revenue on our report, the sum would then become doubled. So because it's going to now aggregate the actual sum with the sum that you have added to it, and that will give you some sort of false figures. You have false figures for your data, which would mean that your report is not accurate. So anything like this, you having totals or subtotals within your data, they are things that you must ensure that you do away with. Leave all of those for things that we figure out in your report. That is rule number 6. And rule number 7 is saying that data categories must have unique columns. What do we mean by this? What this is saying is that the region column, for instance, is talking about regions. So which means that everything region should be under the region column. The content of that column must be unique to regions. That is what that is saying. If, for instance, we have a region column and then we have some of the regions under our market, and then we have some stores under our market, and like that. This means that when someone looks at your market column, what they expect is that they should see just our market locations based on this data set. They should see just our market locations. But if I scroll down and I'm seeing not central, which is actually a region, this is not a market location. That is where data integrity issues come in, which implies that your columns, they are not unique in the kinds of data you have within it. If you're talking about revenue, everything you should have on your revenue column must be revenue. You shouldn't have figures of units sold under your revenue. That is what that rule is saying. So rule 1 to 7, shouldn't have empty rows. You shouldn't have empty columns. You should have single row of headings. Your dates must be in a single column. You shouldn't have obstructions around your data. You shouldn't have totals or subtotals. All your data categories must assume unique columns. Are we clear on this? Are we
Yes.
clear?
Yes.
Okay. All right, great. So let's go. Now that we are
Yes.
clear, we'll begin to see some things in practical. I'll go to my first sheet here, transpose. And I want us to look at this together. Everybody, let's look at this worksheet together based on the explanation we've had on our rules of data. Based on the explanation we've had on our rules of data, observe this very well and tell me what you think is wrong. What have we violated from these rules on this worksheet? Yeah, Baraka.
Hello, for the standard, we have empty column.
We have what?
Empty column
We have empty column. Where do we have empty column?
From here. Oh, sorry. It is filled. I
On
can't.
transpose worksheet. I'm on this worksheet, transpose. So let's look at this very well. Let me copy the rows and then let me paste it somewhere here so we can see that alongside. So look at these rows and look at this data and tell me what has been violated based on our explanation.
The data category has been violated.
The data category. How? Could you explain that further, please?
Oh, I'm coming.
Okay.
Can I answer, please?
Yes, please go on.
Okay, we don't have a single row of headings.
Okay. How many rows of headings do we have?
2.
2 rows of headings. How? This is a row of heading, right?
Uh-huh. Hello? Can you hear me?
Ship mode sales.
Yeah, just hold on, Yinka, please. Okay, ship mode and sales. They are
Sales,
the
yes.
headings, right? Okay. All right. Thank you, Sandra. So Yinka, please go on.
The reason I said data category,
Yeah.
is because the dates is not having a date format.
The dates. Which dates?
So sorry, same day. Yes, the same day.
Okay.
And also, if we look at the data clearly, we're having many headings. For example, we have standard classes that are either 4 or 5 there, even more than 5, sure.
Mm.
So I think we should have just one, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay. All right. Thank you for that contribution. Any other person? What do we think of this data?
I'm not sure if it is violating anything. I think instead of it being in, like, the headings are on the column, why the information are on the, why the info for the headings are on the row.
So what
Hello?
instead of that, what should have happened?
I think it should have, the heading should have been ship mode and sales. Why the standard class, same class, everything should have been under, like, on column.
Okay. But you said you don't think anything is wrong with it. That means we can go on with this
It
for
is like something,
analysis.
instead of being in a portrait format, it's in a
Yeah.
landscape format.
Okay. Okay. All right. Thank you very much, everyone, for this. Let's look at something here. We mentioned on our rules that when it comes to our headings, we should have a single row of headings. And we also said that our data categories must have unique columns. When we look at what we have as our heading here, let's assume this is our heading, row number 1. When we look at this very well, we would see that a number of things are actually repeated. For instance, standard class, we have standard class here. This is another standard class. This is another standard class. Another one is here and like that. Which means that by what we have on our rules, that we should have unique columns for each data categories. Standard classes are actually supposed to be a single data category, which means we are not supposed to have them across different columns like this. They should actually be under one another, assuming the same column, because standard class is standard class. We are not saying that the set of standard classes that we have here are different. So Looking at the fact that they are the same, so they are not supposed to be on different columns. They are to be on the same column, and whatever value we have for them should be just next to them. That is the first thing. Another thing about this is that everything that we have here, these figures here, typically they look more like a single data category. What we have above, they are strictly text. What we have below, they are figures. So which implies that this is another data category which normally should have assumed a single column and not across different columns. So having figured that out, then what do we do? We need to ensure that we have our data management rules fulfilled. It has to be satisfied before we can proceed for our analysis. In order to now achieve that, we need to do two things. One is that we must ensure, based on what we have identified, that all our categories, data categories, they have unique columns. So we should have a standard class, same day. They should have a single column. Our figures, they should be on the same column. Secondly, is that we should have a single row of heading, which at this point is looking like maybe we do not even have a row of heading yet, because whatever we are going to define as our heading should be descriptive of what is coming under it. So if we look at this data again now, everybody look at it again. What do we think should be the headings? And if we do not have an heading here, what do we think should we create as our heading?
I think the headings should be ship mode and sales.
Okay. Thank you, Yinka. Ship mode and sales. Anyone else? Anyone else? What do we think? And if you are confused, please let me know. Okay, Baraka, you want to say something?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So Yinka, why do you think it should be ship mode and sales?
Because if we look clearly, we look at it clearly, we have standard class, sales, and first class, and standard class, same day, first class. I think they are shipping mode.
Okay.
The figures below, I think they are sales. The amounts they sold for a particular category also.
Okay. Okay, great. All right. So that's it actually. So if we look at this well, this is our ship mode here. Ship mode is how your order was shipped. Was your order shipped on a first class agreement? Was it the same day? Was it standard class? These are ship modes. And the sale amount of that product that was shipped as a standard class, same day, another standard class, same day, and like that. So what we should have typically should be something like this, should be just something like this. Should be just hold on, everybody. This is what we should have typically, just something like this, having our ship mode and sales as the header, and then under our ship mode we have a number of classes here. So we have the standard class, we have the same day, we have the standard class, another same day, standard class, and like that. And we have the sales amounts for each of these ship modes. So this is how the structure should be really. And if we look at the structure now, let's look at our rules again. Our rule says that our column should have unique set of data categories. So everything that we have here, they are our ship modes, they are text, and then under our sales, we have our sales amount. So which means that we do not have, or we do have our unique columns to be descriptive, of the data set or the data points that we have under it. And secondly is that now it is a bit evident that we have what could be said to be a header. So we have a header here and we have details of our table just right below. Is anyone lost at this point? We have questions. Is it all clear up to this point? Pamela? Pamela, I can't hear you yet. I still can't hear you, but your mic is opened. Or can anyone hear Tomiwa? Is it just me? So I am sure.
Oh, we can't
I
hear
can't
him.
hear.
Okay. But I want to be sure he doesn't have a question. Okay. So who has a question at this point before we proceed? Or is it all clear? Clear, not clear? Please let's respond.
Claire.
Okay. Claire, thank you for the response. Who else?
Clear.
Who else is it clear to? Who is confused?
Clear.
Claire. Okay. Okay. Claire. All right. Great. Okay. So now let's go to another worksheet. Let me open this other worksheet here. We're going to do a few of these within Power BI shortly, but I just want us to look at the first three worksheets before we go into Power BI. So let's look at this. Let me bring in our data rules again. I'll place this here under the on pivot one. That's the worksheet we're looking at now. So let's look at this and then let's tell me what we think is wrong with this data set. And if it is fine, let's say it is fine.
I think it is fine.
Okay, you
Same
think
here.
it is fine. Okay. Same here. Okay. Let's look at it very well, very well.
So I just have something that I want. I don't know, maybe if it is an error or something, but I noticed that the ship mode, it doesn't. If you check the headings now, it's just like name, like San Francisco, Dallas. So, but ship mode doesn't correlate with the what we have
And
on the headings.
Okay.
and then
Thanks for that, Ablaziz. Yeah, Baraka.
we have two San Francisco.
Sorry.
We have two headings for San Francisco's.
For San Francisco's. Okay, and what does that translate to?
single data categories must have unique column.
Okay, so which means we have a rule violated, right? Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. Any other person? What do we think of this?
Um, I I think that the location should be on one row, and then the corresponding values on one column rather, and then the corresponding values on another column.
Okay, all right, so that means we need to you're saying that the data categories or which of the rules specifically is violated, which of the rules?
Data categories must have unique values, I think.
Okay, all right, yeah, so if we look at this very well, if we start from column A, actually for column A, ship mode, then we have first class, same day, second class, standard class. It looks like it's good. But when we come to column B, we have Austin and we have the values here. We have Waco, Chicago, and like that up to San Antonio. The values or the names that we have from column B down to column O, they are actually names of locations. And when we talk about this is a typical scenario of, say, we have our customers from different locations. Maybe say in Nigeria now, or maybe in Lagos, we have customers from Ikeja, customers from VI, from Aja, and the likes of those. And we entered their data onto this. And then for customers from Austin, then we have the sales amount for the person that shipped his products by first class, same day, second class, and standard class. We have all of this. And then we do the same for Waco, Chicago, and like that. So typically what this means is that the entire location that we have here, by our data management rules, they are supposed to be on a single column. They are supposed to just sit on a single column like this. That is what we're supposed to have, and not across different columns. Because what we have here from Austin down to San Antonio, they are actually in the same data category, talking about the same thing, which is location. So for that reason, they are meant to be on the same column like this. And then we now have the sales amount next to them for each of the ship modes. So what this should be typically is, we have our ship modes. Let's look at this. We have our ship mode, and then our ship mode should be just like this. We have the location like this, and then this will be for first class. So everything down to San Antonio will be for first class like this. And then we bring the values for this guy, the first class guys, for their location. And we paste here, and this becomes the sales amount. So the same thing will go for same day. So we just come to same day, and then we come under our ship mode. And then for our location, so our location comes down. Then for our sales amount for this particular location would just be right like this. Would just be like this, like this. So this is what we are supposed to have typically. This is what we should have as the structure of our data. And what this means is that we have a single column for our ship mode, detailing all the categories of our ship mode. and a single column for our location with all values for our location and the corresponding sales amount. So this is the structure that we are supposed to have. Are we clear on this?
Yes.
Okay. Mazida, you have a question?
Yes,
Okay,
I
please
still
ask.
don't understand it clearly. Please, can you come again?
Okay, so what we are saying is this. Look at this. So now look at this data. Class, same day, second class, standard class. They're talking about ship mode, correct? Mazida, you could leave your mic opened so I get some feedback from you. Yeah, but when it comes to these guys here, so just see what we have: Austin, Waco, Chicago, Philadelphia, and like that. These are locations. Locations in what country, please? Who knows the country this are in? Anybody?
Yes.
Sorry?
US, USA.
US. So just look at these locations as say we have Ikeja, we have VI, we have Bega, and like that. We have customers in these different locations. And these our customers, they have different ship modes that they use for whatever product that they buy from us. So what data management is saying is that whatever data categories, whatever data points that belong to the same data categories, they should be on the same column. So rather than we having our Ikeja, VI, and Bega on different columns like this, what we should actually have is say we have these guys on a column like this, on the same column like this. What's happening to Excel? So on the same column like this is what we should have. Our Ikeja here, we should have VI here, and we should have Bega just under it like this. So this is what we should have typically. Why? Because everything here, they are just talking about locations. They are talking about location and nothing more. So because of the fact that what we have at this point, Austin to San Antonio, they are all talking about location, and we have established that whatever data category should be together in a unique column. That is the more reason why these guys are meant to be in a single column and not on different columns.
Okay.
Do you get now?
Yes, sir. Thank
All
you.
right, you're welcome. Okay, is this clear to everybody? I want to assume. Can we move on? Clear to everybody? Quick response.
Yes.
Okay. One
Yes, you
more
can move
small
on.
responses. Okay. All right. So now let me open my Power BI now. Let me open Power BI. Let me just clean up these guys a bit. Let me clean up these guys. Yeah, so let me take this off. I'll take this off. Okay, so let me bring up Power BI. Let me open a new work file. Sorry, it's still is opening here. I'll bring it on my other screen just in some secs. Okay, so I think I have it now. It seems like it's still loading. Okay, yeah, I have it now. So if we launch Power BI, we should have an interface like this. Maybe slightly different though, but we should have something that is very much similar to what I have on my screen. Just a quick run through of the Power BI interface for those of us that we are just seeing this interface for the first time. The Power BI interface is just similar to the other Microsoft products that you have used before. Microsoft Excel, Microsoft Word, PowerPoint, and the likes of those. And the peculiarities or the similarities between these products is that they all have tabs. So like in your Excel, you have home, you have insert, you have formulas, you have all the stuff. The same thing you have in Power BI, home, insert, modeling, view, and help. And then we have different views in Power BI. We'll still get back to this when we get to reporting per se. So for Power BI, we have three views basically. By default, you'll be on the report view. And what this means is that it is on this report view that you build your entire report. Everything reports that you want to build will be done on this particular view. And this space, this white space at the middle is what we call the canvas. Is the canvas. That is where you drag and drop your visualization and then you see your report. That is the report view. The second view that we have in Power BI is the data view, and you see the views to the left. You see the data view, that is the second. So if you hover your mouse on it, you see data. So if I click on data, so what I would see here typically is the data sets that I have loaded into Power BI. So whatever data set I have loaded into Power BI, I would see the actual data set here, the structure, the content, I'll see it here. And then I can make some little manipulations to it as you would see later. And the last view that we have in Power BI is what is called the model view or the relationship view. You have the model view or we call it the relationship view. And what this does, we'll get to know it better when we get to data modeling. So when we get to data modeling, we'll know what we can do on our model or relationship view. So I'll go back to my report view. And on the report view, we have some panes at the right. You'll see you have a filters pane, you have a visualizations pane, and you have the fields pane. What all of these do, we'll still get to those. But really just a brief. Filters pane, that's where you apply filters. Visualizations pane, that is where you select the visuals you want to use on your report, line graph, bar graph, pie chart, donut, all of these are on the visualizations pane. And your fields pane, that is where you drag content within your table, typically your columns. This is where you drag it onto your report and you visualize whatever you want to see. On the tabs, under your home tab, we have a number of commands or buttons. And we have groups. When I say group, what I mean is this clipboard is a group. So you see some vertical lines separating the commands. Wherever you see a vertical line means that whatever is enclosed whatever you have enclosed in your in between the two lines, whatever you have enclosed in between the two lines, they are what you have as a group. So now the first group is the clipboard group. We have the data group, you have the queries, you have the insert, calculation, sensitivity, and share. Everything you have between your data and the queries. Let's note that. Everything you have on the data group and your queries group will take you to another application that we call Power Query. So for those of us that we are coming from a somewhat sound Excel background, we will know Power Query. Power Query is also in Excel, and Power Query is that tool that you're going to use to clean your entire data. It is a data preparation or manipulation tool, Power Query. So that means that if I click on Get Data here, or I click on Excel Workbook, Power BI Dataset, SQL Server, Data Transform Data, all of these commands, once I click on any button here, then I'm ready to go into Power Query to go and do whatever data transformation I want to do. But to begin with, if you want to work on any data set within Power BI, remember our building blocks. You must bring in your data set. That is the first thing you must do. That is where everything begins. So if you want to bring in your data set, the command that you use basically is your get data under the data group. You click on get data and you select the kind of data you want to bring in. We have different data sources that you can bring in data from when it comes to what you want to analyze in Power BI. So you can bring in data from Excel, you can bring in data from SQL Server, you can bring in text files, you can bring in even PDF, provided that the data that you have on the PDF is in table format. You can bring it in, analyze it within your Power BI. So, but for this demo, because of the fact that our data set is on Excel file, our data that we want to work on is on an Excel file, then we are going to select on our Power BI, we'll select Excel workbook, and then we click on connect. So we want to connect to an Excel workbook. So I'll click on connect. And once I click on connect, it will ask me to select what data file, what Excel file I want to work with. And I will go here to, I think it's on my desktop. It should be here, just here, data prep, and I have exercise files, dirty data. I have dirty data clean, yeah, data cleaning intro. So I'll get to that. So I'll open that, but because I have it open in Excel, so I need to close it in Excel. Once I close it in Excel, then I'll be fine. So I'll click on open. And when I click on open, this opens up a navigator for me. And the essence of the navigator is so that you select what worksheet exactly you want to work on this particular file. So like we can see that all the columns, all the worksheets that we have on that workbook, they are listed here. We have transpose the sheet one. This is where I wrote the data management rules. You can see we have a preview here. We have the transpose and all. So, but we want to work on the transpose file first. So I'll check the box behind transpose to select it. And once you check it, you have it selected like this, highlighted in yellow. You see some buttons at the bottom right. The first one says load. Logically, we know that when we use this button, it loads our data. That is what it's saying logically. When you click on load, you just assume that your data is clean and then you bring it into Power BI. You want to start analyzing. The second button we have here is transform data. Transform data implies that, no, I want to do some manipulation on this data set. And if you click on cancel, obviously we know what that would do. So now, what I would advise that for whatever data you want to work on, always transform data. Because sometimes you assume your data is clean and then for some reasons, you start your analysis, you get to see that there's some blank, there's some null values, there's some things which you should have treated within your Power Query where you transform the data. So always transform. So I'll click on transform data. And once I click on transform data, we will observe that we have another window opened for us. So the other window is opened on my other screen. I'm going to now bring that on the screen. So this is the second window, which is, if you look at the top left, you say Power Query Editor. So we are in another engine entirely, but this engine works with our Power BI. If you look at this now, this is the same file that we have in our Excel. Transpose. On the left part, we have under the queries, you have the name of the file. In the middle, you have the data itself. And then on the right pane, you have your applied steps. Let's quickly look at this holistically. I will not talk about the tabs for now because I believe that the tabs, literally, they are just like the tabs we just saw in Power BI. We have home, transform, add column, view tools, and all. But when we begin some of these activities, I will tell us where to go to perform that transformation. But what we need to note is that for transformations that you do almost every time, transformations that we do almost every time, or just as a general rule, whatever you do almost every time within the Microsoft products ecosystem, you always find them on your Home tab. If I go to Microsoft Word, just a second. If I bring this on my screen, for instance, just this, if I drop this here, you would see that on the tabs, what we have on the Home tab, there are commands that you use very often. You change fonts, you change the size, you increase the indentation, you increase the font size, you change the color, bullet, and all. These are things that you do almost on every document that you work on. There are certain things that you want to do that may not be on the Home tab, but as a general rule is that most of what you do almost every time, you would always find them on the Home tab. So the same thing happens within Power BI and your Power Query. Commands that you would always use for most of the transformations that you want to do, you find them on your Home tab. The second thing I want us to quickly note here is that there are some commands on your Transform tab. For instance, on the Transform tab, I have, let me look at a command that we have here. Let's say that we have transpose. No, this command, let's look at pivot and pivot, split column. Yeah. So if you look at the split columns here now, if I come to my add columns, okay, I have extract and format. Okay, let's use that. On the add columns, I have format, I have extract, and I have some other stuff here on the add column tab. If I go back to my transform tab, you see that I have format here, I have extract, and I have some other commands here. The difference is that some of the commands that you find on transform tab and you also find on add column tab, they will do the same thing. But what you should bear in mind is that wherever you want to perform a particular transformation and the button for that transformation is under your transform tab, if you use it from there, it performs that transformation for you on the existing column. But whenever you want that transformation should create another column, that is when you use it from the add column tab. Let me not be speaking too much what's it called, theories here. So let's go right in. That is just so to quickly introduce us to the tabs and all. So let's come back to this now. We are on our Home tab. We have brought in our data set, transpose. In the middle, we have our data. We have a formula bar that is showing us what formula is being applied, and so that we note Power Query works with a language called M. So whatever formula you see on the formula bar is being run by a language called M, matchup. That is the name of that language. And that language, you may not necessarily need to learn that language, because whenever you click on any of the buttons here, they literally perform, it writes a code for you, which you would see on the formula bar. So it's not really for you to learn that language at this level. Some very advanced level, you may want to learn the language a bit so that you can manipulate things more in a more flexible manner. And the other important thing we must note on this interface is the applied steps. What Power Query does for you is that whatever transformation or whatever thing you do within the Power Query editor, it records the steps for you. So by recording the steps for you, what that means is that you can look at all the steps you have taken to get your data to what you can now see. And for some reasons, maybe you want to reverse on those steps, you can actually go back on those steps. So you don't use Ctrl Z here. What you can do is to come back to the steps and rewind. And you go back to the previous steps and then you can add more steps to it. But whatever thing you do, you would see them on the applied steps. While we wanted to bring our data in from Power BI, we clicked on Get Data, and then we went to locate where our file was. That was when Power Query marked the source step for us. The source step, we went to our folder to check for what we want, the file we want to work on, and then we selected that Excel file on our desktop. So that was the source step. The next step, the navigation. Remember that at a point we add a navigator, and on the navigator we had to tick the worksheet that we want from that Excel file. That was the navigator step. The other two steps that we have here, promoted headers and change type. Power Query assumed that's what we want to do. And the reason why Power Query assumed that and promoted our headers was because of the fact that it looks at this row 1 and Power Query is thinking that this looks more like a header. And for that reason, Power Query just went on to promote our header for us. Oluwafemi, you have a question.
Yes. Okay, so
Okay.
I'm not doing the formula bar on my own Power Query page.
Okay. You can't see the formula bar. Is that what you just asked? Sorry.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
Yes.
So if we can't see the formula bar, what we need to do is to come to the View tab. So if you come to the View tab, you will see formula bar. Just tick that box and you should have it appear. Please do
Okay,
that.
I've seen it. Thank you.
Great.
Yes,
You're
I'm okay.
welcome. All right. So let me give us a tip there as well. For everything Microsoft, PowerPoint, Excel, Word, whenever you want to alter what you can see on the user interface, you do that on the View tab. Okay, so maybe there is something you want to see that is not appearing here by default. Just the first place is go to the View tab. That there, from there you'll be able to adjust things. So now let's come back. So Power Query assumed that our first row is our header, and that was why Power Query promoted the header for us, pushed it up so that we have this as our header, and then it then went ahead to now do a change type step. We'll get to the change type step. But what I will do is that I will rewind these two steps. I want it to be that I have total control on it. Power Query should not do things for me by default. So I will rewind. And how do I rewind my steps? You see an X icon behind the step. If you hover your mouse on it, it turns red. If I click on that, it deletes that step. And then promoted headers, I don't want that as well. I'll click on it and it goes off. So this is what we have now. We are back on the navigation. We are back on the navigation. Remember, when we were on our Excel, who remembers what we said was wrong with this data set? Who remembers? And how did we say that it should be structured? Who remembers? Oh, we are running out of time already. Yinka, you want to go on?
In one column, where the sales should also be in one column.
Not sure I got that. Sorry.
The ship mode should be in one column, while the sales should also be in one column.
Okay, great. Yeah. So our ship mode should be in a single column. So as we have column 1, everything we should have under it should be our ship mode, and everything under the second column should be our sales, and not across like this. So the command that you use to achieve that, whenever you are changing the structure of your entire table, and what I mean by changing the structure of your entire table is you are turning your table around. You want your columns to become rows, and you want your rows to become columns, because that is typically what we want to do now. What we have on our rows, we want it to be the columns. That is what we want to do. Whenever that is what you want to do in Power Query Editor, then what you are trying to do is what is called a transpose. You want to turn around your table. Your rows becomes your column. And the commands to do that can be located under or can be found under your transform tab. So if I come to the transform tab, I will see a command transpose. And you'll see even with the icon behind transpose, it's saying that your rows will become columns, columns will become rows. So I'll click on transpose. If I click on transpose, you will see that by just that button click, everything has turned around. So now we have our ship mode, everything just under ship mode, and we have our sales amount all under the sales. Okay, hi, Oluwafemi, please go on.
So sorry. So my header didn't. I think the first row was selected. It didn't show as row 1, right? Anyway, I did something. I want to undo. What do I use to do undo?
Okay, yeah, so under the applied steps at the right side of your screen, you see applied
Where's the applied
steps.
steps? To
Can
the
you?
right side of.
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes. I've
So
seen it.
under the applied steps, you see like an X icon behind the steps you've applied. Just click on that, it deletes that step. Does that work?
Yes, it does.
Great. So now you see that our table has been transposed. So what we add as our rows have become our column now. So our data is looking a bit structured the way we want it. But are we there yet? What do we think? Are we fine now? Can we go on to load our data? Any more thing to do?
We don't have a header.
We don't have an header yet. Yeah. If you look at what we have as our header, we have column 1, column 2. This is because we do not have anything assigned as the header for this table. But do we actually have headers for this table? Do we? Let me call on, okay, Oluwafemi, yes, okay, correct. So we have headers for this table, which is what we have on our row 1. So which means that we need to find a way of pushing what we have on our row 1 above, just like elevating it, promoting it to the top, so that what we have on row 1 becomes what replaces column 1 and column 2, and our entire data set begins from row 2 downwards would now shift up to row 1 downwards. That is what we need to do. And the commands to do that is, we can find it in a number of ways really. If you stay on transform tab, we'll see a command at the top left, use first row as headers, pretty much descriptive. Use first row as headers means that what we have on our row 1, we want to push it up to be our column headers. So if I click on that, observe what happens. Immediately our ship mode and sales replaced what we had as our headers, which was just column 1 and column 2. And then our data looks pretty much structured now. And then Power Query also applied another step for us, which is the change type step. But we're going to look at that later. What it just did was to convert this to a particular data type. So Power Query works with data types. So you need to define what sort of data do you have in a particular column. So ship mode, everything here looks like text. So it has to assume a text data type. Our sales, they are figures, so it has to be figures or numbers data type. But we are going to look at the data types a bit more extensively, so we are not confused about certain things. Is it clear to us up to this point? Do we have questions? Do we have questions? Okay, if we don't have questions, is it clear? What we have done so far, is it clear to us?
Yes.
Okay, I got 1 yes.
Yes.
Okay, 2 yeses. Some of us are we confused? Let's know. That's why we're here.
It's clear.
Yes, it's clear.
It's clear. Okay, great. All right. So now we are done transforming our data. Our data is fine. So we have a single row of heading. We have our columns. They are unique in what content we have there. We don't have empty rows. We don't have empty columns. We don't have obstruction around our data. We don't have data dates for this particular data set. We would have said that some our data is in a single column and like that. So our data management rules are fulfilled on these. Then we just go ahead, go back to your home tab. So on the home tab at the top left, you see a command close and apply. So I'll click on close and apply, and that returns us back to Power BI. So we are done transforming our data in Power Query. It takes us back to Power BI and we are good. So now you see that under the fields pane, we have a table there, transpose, and if I click on the drop down, I'll see two things, basically our columns. See the sales column, I will see the ship mode column. So we have cleaned our data, we have prepared this data, we need to start our analysis so we can go on. We are good on this. We are 6 minutes at the top of the hour already, and we are going to round up this class in 4 minutes. 4 minutes, we round up this class. If you have any questions, please let's ask our questions now. If you have questions, please let's ask. Let's ask our questions.
Yeah, Muslim.
Okay, yeah, Blazis.
I don't really have any question, but I sent you a message, but I don't know, maybe you are busy. So that's the last class we had. So
okay,
I'm connecting my OneDrive to the because I tried to work on the last for the building from blank. So still I couldn't, after I've downloaded my everything, the OneDrive, the document you sent to us, and I couldn't even connect it with my Power Apps. But I've sent you a message just to remind you. Maybe you can just help to. Maybe you can reply when you are free.
Okay. So I will check that and reply. And the other thing I will just quickly mention on that is for whenever we are working on something and probably it seems a bit urgent, we want to get some quick response, please, we can drop it on the group itself. So we drop it on the group. I believe even some of our colleagues might be available to quickly jump on that to assist us with it, so that we don't get things a bit more dragged. So, but I will look at that and then I will respond to that hopefully as soon as I can. Yeah. Any other thing? Any other thing? Any other thing? Okay, if we don't have question, let me just quickly revise some things with us. When we started this session today, I mentioned to us that we have a framework for working with Power BI. So what are the things that we have on the framework? What are the 3 essential things that we do to create reports within Power BI?
Data preparation.
Data preparation. Thank you, Tope. 1 per person, please.
Data modeling.
Okay, data modeling. Okay. Sorry, someone else.
Data visualization.
Data visualization. And to prepare our data, what tool do we use primarily to prepare our data? What tool do we use?
Excel.
What tool do
Data
we use?
management. The data management tools.
No, okay. Let me say this way. To prepare our data, how do I put this question a bit more straightforward? Okay, to prepare our data, what
We use
part of
Power
Power
Query.
BI? Let me ask that way. Okay, we use Power Query. So Power Query is an engine within Power BI that we use for our data preparation. And that was why when we loaded our, it's that tool that we use to get our data and then to perform all those transformations that we did on our transpose worksheet. And let's quickly recount the data management rule before we call it a night. What's the first rule? Let's shout it out.
No empty rows.
No empty.
No empty rows. Thank you, Yinka. Oluwafemi, please.
No empty column.
No empty columns. Thank you. Number 3.
Single row of headings.
Single row of headings. Thank you, Mazida. Number 4. One per person, please. Okay, thank you, Mazida. One per person, one per person. I've gotten 3. Let's be fast so we can call it a night.
Dates must be on a single row. A single column, rather.
Okay, dates must be on a single column. That's number 4. The
No
5th
obstruction
rule.
around your data.
No obstructions around your data. Number 6 and number 7.
No total subtotals.
No totals and all.
No totals and subtotals. And we have one more rule.
Data categories must have unique column.
Data categories must have unique columns. So thank you very much, everyone. So let's revisit those rules and key them down with some of the explanations that we've had so far. So it is from this point that we'll continue tomorrow. So we still do data prep tomorrow, and beyond looking at some of these separate cases, we'll look at a typical data set that we could have in real life and how we can quickly go around cleaning that data. Hopefully we'll be able to exhaust that tomorrow. So thank you very much, everybody, and we hope to see us tomorrow. Let's do have a good night. Bye for now.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you. Good night. Bye.